Mikey's big plan. Mikey the Mauler Malone cleaved through the student throng like a shark through chum, freshmen scattering before him. The corridor reeked of tired pizza and nascent anxiety. He halted before a scrawny kid wrestling with his jammed locker, the metal screeching in protest. "Trouble, twig." His voice, a low growl, vibrated the air. The boy, eyes like saucers, bobbed his head. "I got it, Mr. Malone." A gold tooth winked as Mikey grinned. "It's Mauler, runt. And hold the door for seniors next time. Comprende?" He cuffed the kid's back with enough force to send him crashing into the locker. A flurry of papers spiraled down, unnoticed as Mikey and his intimidating shadow moved on. By the cafeteria, the cloying aroma of indeterminate meat hung heavy. Mikey slouched against the wall, outlining his scheme. "Evans thinks she can just stroll in and dictate. Enforce rules on us. Not happening. Reality check time." He spat, a gesture echoed by his crew. "You're actually going through with it?" a kid named Kevin squeaked, his voice cracking with nerves. "Am I gonna do it?" Mikey bellowed, seizing Kevin's jacket and hoisting him off his feet. "I am the doing. She's going in the dumpster. Case closed. Tomorrow, after her pathetic campus unity speech. Chen needs a distraction. She's always glued to the old crone." He dropped Kevin, who crumpled to the floor, ashen-faced. "Anyone got a problem with that?" Silence answered. A ghost of a memory surfaced, Mikey at 8, shoving a smaller kid off the swings. Tears, a scraped knee. Mrs. Olson, the playground aide, just sighed, murmuring about playing nice. No consequences. Later, a similar incident in high school. A shove, a jeer, a blooded nose in the lavatory earned a perfunctory warning from the principal, a vague platitude about his potential. Potential for what? To be invisible. To be feared. He embraced the fear. Sarah Chen, small but determined, rushed past, her backpack threatening to burst with books. A disapproving glance flickered in Mikey's direction before she vanished into the library. He glared. He'd seen the adoring way she looked at Evans. The sycophancy grated. "Chen's a complication," he rumbled, almost to himself. "She actually admires that fossil." Tony, his mountainous friend, chuckled. "Don't sweat her, Mikey. We'll handle it. Besides," he added, flexing his bicep, "who's going to believe her over us?" Mikey's gold tooth flashed in a predatory grin. Tomorrow, Principal Evans would learn who truly held sway over this campus. And Mikey the Mauler Malone would finally claim the deference he craved. Or, failing that, the dread. The principal's secret. The muffled bounce of a basketball was the only sound that dared intrude on Principal Evans' office, a lonely counterpoint to the charged atmosphere within. Mark stood before her, arms locked across his chest, radiating teenage angst. "Mark," she began, her tone a steady, calming balm, "I understand your frustration, but disrupting Mr. Henderson's class simply isn't acceptable. And the vandalism, that crossed a line." He muttered a response, eyes glued to the floor. Evans exhaled softly, a nearly imperceptible sigh. She saw potential in Mark, buried beneath layers of hurt. "Mr. Henderson is prepared to drop the charges if you commit to community service. Perhaps tidying up the grounds." Suspicion flickered across Mark's face. "Why would he do that?" "Because he believes in redemption, Mark. As do I." She leaned forward, her gaze softening. "We all stumble. It's what comes next that truly defines us." After Mark finally acquiesced, the tension slowly drained from Principal Evans like water receding from the shore. She glanced at the clock. Almost time. The piercing shriek of the dismissal bell unleashed a torrent of students into the corridors. Waiting for the initial surge to dissipate, Principal Evans retrieved her well-worn satchel. Instead of joining the exodus to the parking lot, she headed toward the gymnasium. Inside, the gymnasium echoed with the squeal of shoes against the polished floor. She nodded to Coach Miller, overseeing basketball practice, and slipped behind the bleachers. There, almost swallowed by the back wall, was an unassuming door, camouflaged by the gym's drab green paint. A small, silver key, always on her person, unlocked it. She stepped inside and closed the door behind her. A tight staircase descended into a cool, cavernous darkness. The air became heavy, tinged with a scent of wood and exertion. At the bottom, she tugged a chain, revealing a hidden dojo bathed in sudden light. Surprisingly spacious, the room boasted padded mats and traditional Japanese calligraphy. A line of students, ranging from tentative freshmen to strapping seniors, stood at attention, their white GIs immaculate. Principal Evans placed her satchel on a bench and removed her blazer, revealing a black karate GI. The transformation was striking. The mild-mannered principal receded, replaced by a figure of formidable grace. "Sensei," they chanted, bowing deeply. She returned the bow, her keen eyes sweeping across the room, assessing their readiness. "Today," she announced, her voice resonant and firm, a far cry from the gentle tones used upstairs, "we will focus on the Meijeri. Power, precision, control." She demonstrated the technique. Her movements were a study in fluidity and controlled force. The snap of her leg, a fleeting blur, sent a target pad, held by a senior student, hurtling across the dojo. The sharp echo reverberated, a testament to her strength. "Remember," she instructed, her gaze sharp and unwavering, "karate is not about aggression. It is about discipline, respect, and self-defense. It is about discovering your inner strength and wielding it responsibly." Her students mirrored her actions, their faces creased with concentration. The disciplined cadence of bare feet striking the mats filled the dojo, a secret language spoken within these clandestine walls. Principal Evans observed them, offering corrections, encouragement, pushing them to surpass their limitations. In this sanctuary, she was not Principal Evans. She was Sensei Evans, a master, a guardian, and a protector. She hoped she would never have to draw on this skill outside this place. But she would be prepared. Whispers and warnings. "Evans won't know what hit her," Mikey the Mauler Malone bellowed, spittle flying as he stabbed at his lukewarm cafeteria chili with a plastic fork. Tom, ever the sycophant, snickered, but Sarah Chen felt a cold knot tighten in her stomach. The smells of industrial-strength cleaner and overcooked broccoli did nothing to soothe her. "Think about it," Mikey continued, leaning in conspiratorially. "Picture the look on her face when she's headfirst in the dumpster. It'll be legendary." Sarah chewed her lip, the bland tuna salad suddenly tasting like ash. She glanced around the bustling cafeteria, the usual cacophony of teenage chatter grating on her nerves. This wasn't just a prank, it was malicious, aimed at someone who actually cared about the school. Someone like Principal Evans. Later, near the lockers, Sarah cornered Maria, her best friend. "Mikey's planning something awful," she whispered, the metallic tang of the lockers filling her nostrils. "He's going to try and, I don't even want to say it, throw Principal Evans in the dumpster." Maria's eyes widened. "Seriously? That's insane. You have to tell someone." "I know," Sarah said, her voice tight. "But who's going to believe me? It's Mikey Malone. He's practically untouchable." Still, the thought of Principal Evans, with her quiet strength and unexpected wit, facing such humiliation spurred her on. "I have to try." She spent the next period formulating a plan, the rustling pages of her textbook sounding like frantic whispers. The moment the bell rang, Sarah bolted towards Principal Evans' office, her heart hammering against her ribs. She imagined the smooth, dark wood of the principal's desk, the reassuring scent of old books and polished furniture that always permeated the room. But as she rounded the corner, she saw him. Mikey, leaning against the doorframe of Principal Evans' office, a smug grin plastered across his face. He was talking, gesturing expansively, his voice a low rumble that Sarah couldn't quite decipher. Mikey spotted her. His grin widened, morphing into something predatory. Well, 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 he drawled, straightening up. Look who it is. Sarah. What brings you here? Sarah's mind raced. She couldn't just blurt it out with Mikey standing right there. I just needed to ask Principal Evans about the upcoming science fair, she stammered, the lie feeling clumsy and obvious. Mikey chuckled, a sound that sent shivers down her spine. Science fair, huh? I'm sure the principal's got more important things to worry about. Why don't you run along now? I'm sure she'll be busy for a while. He blocked the doorway, his large frame an insurmountable obstacle. Sarah knew she was defeated, at least for now. The faint scent of Principal Evans' lavender perfume wafted from the office, a tantalizing reminder of the conversation she was desperate to have. As she retreated, she caught a glimpse of Principal Evans through the small window in the door. She was listening intently, her expression unreadable, but there was a glint of something sharp in her eyes. Had she heard something? Did she suspect anything? Sarah could only hope. Intercepted. Sarah's sneakers squeaked on the polished linoleum as she hurried down the hallway, the knot in her stomach tightening with each step. Principal Evans' office door was just ahead, a beacon of hope in the escalating chaos that Mikey was about to unleash. But as she reached for the handle, a hulking figure materialized in front of her, blocking her path like a granite wall. Going somewhere, Chen? Mikey's voice dripped with mock sweetness, the sound grating on Sarah's nerves. He leaned against the door, arms crossed, a smug grin plastered across his face. The air around him seemed to crackle with a low, menacing energy. Mikey, move, Sarah said, her voice tight, trying to keep the tremor of fear at bay. I need to talk to Principal Evans. He chuckled, a low rumble that vibrated in Sarah's chest. About what? My outstanding citizenship. He winked, the gesture grotesque and unsettling. Relax, Chen. Live a little. It's just a prank. A prank that could get you expelled. And hurt Principal Evans. Sarah retorted, her voice rising despite her best efforts. The scent of his cheap cologne filled her nostrils, acrid and cloying. Evans can handle it, Mikey said, waving a dismissive hand. Besides, it's going to be legendary. Think of the YouTube views. He actually preened at the thought. This isn't a joke, Mikey. This is assault. Sarah's gaze flicked past him, trying to see through the small window in the door. Was Principal Evans even in there? Mikey stepped closer, invading her personal space. Relax, Sarah. You worry too much. Just go back to your books and leave the fun to me. He lowered his voice, a predatory glint in his eyes. Besides, wouldn't you rather be on the winning side? Sarah recoiled, disgusted. There are no sides, Mikey. There's just right and wrong. And this is definitely wrong. She balled her hands into fists, nails digging into her palms. Arguing wasn't getting her anywhere. He was too far gone, blinded by his own ego and the promise of fleeting internet fame. She needed a new plan. Fine, she said, forcing a sigh and a semblance of defeat. Have your fun. But don't say I didn't warn you. She turned, pretending to walk away, but her mind was already racing. The dumpster was behind the cafeteria, near the loading dock. If she couldn't warn Principal Evans directly, maybe she could be waiting there, ready to intervene. She just needed to figure out how without getting herself thrown in a dumpster too. The metallic tang of adrenaline filled her mouth as a plan began to form, a daring gambit born of desperation, and a fierce determination to protect her principal, no matter the cost. The confrontation. Principal Evans walked towards the loading docks behind the arts building, a thin file tucked under her arm. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows, painting the cracked asphalt in stripes of gold and grey. She'd promised the Pottery Club an extension on their firing schedules, and the delivery route was the quickest way to the kill. The air hung thick and heavy, smelling of stale pizza and impending rain. A lone crow cawed from a nearby oak, its sound swallowed by the industrial hum of the college's ventilation system. Mikey the Mauler Malone leaned against the dumpster, its metallic stench doing little to dampen his grin. His friends, Jake and Lewis, flanked him, their shoulders shaking with suppressed laughter. Jake fiddled with his phone, ostensibly checking the time, but really filming the whole thing. Lewis bounced on the balls of his feet, practically vibrating with anticipation. They'd wedged the dumpster lid open with a stray brick, creating a gaping maw of refuse. "She's coming," Jake hissed, nudging Mikey with his elbow. Mikey straightened, cracking his knuckles. He planted himself squarely in front of the narrow service door, blocking Principal Evans' access. He wanted to savor this. As she rounded the corner, Principal Evans' expression didn't change. No flicker of surprise, no hint of apprehension. Just that same calm, almost amused, look she always wore. It irritated Mikey to no end. "Well, Mikey," she said, her voice even, blocking doorways again. "Is there a fire drill I wasn't informed about?" Mikey smirked, stepping closer. The stink of the dumpster seemed to cling to him, a noxious cloud of arrogance. "Just wanted a little chat, Principal Evans. About respect. And maybe, consequences." He gestured with his chin towards the overflowing dumpster. "Think of it as a teachable moment." Jake snickered loudly, and Lewis mirrored him, a high-pitched, nervous giggle. Principal Evans' gaze flicked to them, a brief, almost imperceptible tightening around her eyes. "Respect is earned, Mikey," she replied, her voice still calm, but with an underlying steel that made Lewis' giggle die in his throat. "Not demanded. And consequences? Well, those are for those who break the rules." Mikey puffed out his chest, trying to look bigger, more intimidating. "And what if the rule is, you gotta take a little dip in the trash?" He took another step, crowding her. "Think about all the valuable lessons you could learn down there." The air crackled with tension. Even the crow seemed to hold its breath. Principal Evans stood her ground, her gaze unwavering. The file remained tucked firmly under her arm, a silent shield against the impending storm. A faint breeze rustled the leaves in the oak tree, a whisper of warning. The smell of rain grew stronger. A twinkle in her eye. Mikey the Mauler Malone spread his arms wide, effectively blocking Principal Evans' path to the staff parking lot. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows, painting the cracked asphalt in hues of orange and grey. He smelled of cheap cologne and stale cafeteria pizza, a pungent combination that wrinkled Evelyn's nose. "Going somewhere, Principal?" Mikey sneered, the metal studs on his leather jacket glinting in the fading light. His two goons, Dwayne and Carlos, flanked him, mimicking his menacing posture. Evelyn suppressed a sigh. This was tiresome. "Home, Mr. Malone," she replied, her voice even and calm. Unless you have a pressing academic concern you'd like to discuss. Mikey chuckled, a low, guttural sound. Academic. Nah. Just wanted to express my disappointment with my recent suspension. Seems a little harsh, don't you think? Especially considering accidents happen. He gestured vaguely towards the nearby dumpster, overflowing with discarded textbooks and banana peels. Evelyn's gaze flickered to the dumpster, then back to Mikey's face. She noted the slight tremor in his hands, the way his eyes darted nervously. For all his bluster, he was scared. Good. Fear was a useful tool. Mr. Malone, she said, her voice still level, I understand you're upset. However, threatening faculty is a surefire way to extend that suspension. Perhaps you should reconsider your current course of action. She paused, letting her words hang in the air. The wind rustled the leaves in the old oak tree nearby, a sound like whispered warnings. Dwayne shifted his weight, cracking his knuckles. Carlos just stared, vacant-eyed. Evelyn took a small step forward, closing the distance between them. It was a subtle movement, almost imperceptible, but it disrupted Mikey's carefully constructed intimidation tableau. She focused her gaze on his eyes, seeing the flicker of doubt beneath the bravado. A twinkle appeared in her own eyes, a spark of something unexpected. It wasn't anger, not exactly. It was more like amusement. And a touch of something else, something that hinted at a strength he couldn't possibly comprehend. I'm offering you a chance to walk away, Mr. Malone, she said softly. A chance to go home, cool off, and think about your choices. Take it. Mikey scoffed, puffing out his chest. Walk away? From you? You think I'm scared of some little old lady? He gestured dismissively, the arrogance dripping from his voice. You gonna call security? Cry for help? Please. This is going to be easier than I thought. He took a step closer, the smell of cheap cologne intensifying. Evelyn remained still, her expression unchanged. He mistook her stillness for fear. He was about to learn how wrong he was. The tables turn. Mikey the Mauler Malone planted himself squarely in Principal Evans' path, a smirk plastered across his face that reeked of cheap cologne and impending trouble. The humid afternoon air hung heavy, thick with the scent of freshly cut grass and the nervous energy of the small crowd that had gathered to watch the spectacle unfold near the overflowing dumpster. Well, Principal Evans, Mikey drawled, cracking his knuckles. Looks like you're headed the wrong way. Think I need to redirect you? He took a step closer, his bulk filling her vision. The setting sun glinted off the metal studs on his worn leather jacket. Evelyn Evans didn't flinch. Her expression remained calm, almost serene, a stark contrast to the simmering rage she sensed radiating off Mikey. She dealt with his type before, bluster masking insecurity, a need to dominate fueled by fear. Mr. Malone, she said, her voice even, I suggest you reconsider your actions. Mikey laughed, a harsh, grating sound. Reconsider? Nah? I am feeling pretty decisive right now. He reached out, his hand a meaty claw aiming to grab her arm and drag her towards the dumpster's gaping maw. But before his fingers could close, Principal Evans moved. It was so fast, so precise, that for a split second, Mikey thought he'd imagined it. One moment her hands were clasped calmly in front of her, the next she'd executed a perfect Shuto-uke, a karate knife hand block, deflecting his grab with a sharp, controlled movement. The force of the block reverberated up Mikey's arm, a jolt of unexpected power that made his teeth clench. A collective gasp rippled through the onlookers. Even the cicadas seemed to pause their incessant chirping. Mikey stumbled backward, his eyes wide with disbelief. He cradled his stinging wrist, his bravado suddenly deflated like a punctured balloon. What was that?" he stammered, the color draining from his face. The scent of stale pizza wafted from the dumpster, a mocking reminder of his failed attempt at intimidation. Principal Evans straightened her blazer, her gaze unwavering. The playful glint she usually kept hidden sparkled in her eyes. "That, Mr. Malone," she said, her voice now carrying a subtle edge, "was me suggesting you reconsider." She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a school to run." She stepped around him, leaving Mikey standing there, dumbfounded and humiliated, the laughter of the crowd beginning to swell around him. The overflowing dumpster suddenly seemed a lot less appealing, and a lot more like a mirror reflecting his own foolishness. He watched as Principal Evans continued on her way, her back straight, her stride confident, leaving him to contemplate the unexpected turn the tables had taken. The setting sun cast long shadows, painting the scene in hues of orange and shame. The principal's lesson. Mikey the Mauler Malone smirked, blocking Sarah Chen's path. "Relax, Chen. Just gonna have a little chat with Principal Evans." He cracked his knuckles, the sound amplified in the sudden hush that had fallen over the crowded hallway. Sarah, her face pale, tried to squeeze past him. "Mikey, don't. I'm serious. You don't know what you're doing." He just laughed, a harsh, grating sound. Yeah, I'm shaking in my boots. Now scram." He shoved her lightly, but firmly, towards the lockers. Principal Evans emerged from her office, her expression unreadable. "Mikey, is there a problem?" "Just wanted to offer my assistance with something, Principal," he said, his voice dripping with false sincerity. He took a step towards her, his eyes fixed on the nearby dumpster. "I appreciate the offer, Mikey, but I believe I'm quite capable of handling things myself." Her tone was even, but a glint of steel flashed in her eyes. He feigned confusion. "Capable of what exactly, Principal?" He moved again, closer to her, closer to the dumpster. Then, with a speed that defied his expectations, she moved. One moment she was standing calmly, the next she was a blur of motion. A sharp, focused yell echoed through the hallway as she executed a perfect spinning back kick, the force of it sending a nearby stack of textbooks cascading to the floor. Mikey stumbled back, his bravado evaporating like morning mist. He'd expected a lecture, maybe a stern talking to. He hadn't expected that. She didn't stop. A series of rapid punches followed, each one targeting an imaginary opponent. A side kick snapped out, followed by a precise block and counterattack. The air seemed to crackle with the force of her movements. It was a silent, deadly ballet. The crowd, initially silent with apprehension, erupted in cheers. Gasps of amazement mingled with shouts of encouragement. Even Sarah, now safely out of the way, stared in disbelief, her mouth agape. Mikey, however, wasn't cheering. He was petrified. He'd seen enough bad action movies to know when he was outmatched. This wasn't just some after-school karate class. This was something else entirely. Principal Evans finished her demonstration, her breathing only slightly elevated. She turned to Mikey, her expression now softer, almost pitying. "Mikey," she said, her voice calm and measured. "Respect is earned, not demanded. And actions have consequences." She gestured to the dumpster. "Cleaning duty. For a month. Starting now." Mikey swallowed hard, his face burning with shame. He glanced at the cheering crowd, then back at Principal Evans. The dumpster suddenly seemed a lot less appealing. He nodded meekly. "Yes, Principal." He shuffled towards the dumpster, the laughter of the students ringing in his ears. The weight of his foolishness settled heavily on his shoulders. He finally understood. He'd messed with the wrong principal. A new beginning. The astringent odor of disinfectant stung Mikey's nostrils, a persistent reminder of his transgression. He attacked the graffiti with renewed vigor, his grip tight on the brush handle, knuckles bone white. Hours had bled into one another, the shame a knotted tension in his stomach. Finding them, uttering the words, had become an obsession. He located Principal Evans in her sunlit office, trophies gleaming like captured stars on the shelves. Sarah sat tensely on the edge of a chair, her complexion ashen. Mikey scuffed the floor, the swagger he normally brandished like a weapon utterly gone. Principal Evans, he stammered, his voice betraying him. Sarah. I'm so sorry. What I did was inexcusable. Senseless. I understand if you can't forgive me. He fixed his gaze on the threadbare carpet, avoiding their eyes. I'll do anything to make amends. Principal Evans scrutinized him, her expression a closed book. Sarah regarded him with large, cautious eyes. The silence hung, heavy and suffocating. Finally, Principal Evans released a sigh that seemed to carry the burdens of the entire school. Mikey, she began, her tone surprisingly gentle. I'm a believer in redemption. But it must be earned. Cleaning the walls is a start, a penance, but it's far from sufficient. You need a fundamental shift, a transformation in how you perceive the world and your place in it. She leaned forward, her gaze sharp and direct. I teach a karate class after school. It emphasizes discipline, respect, and self-mastery. I believe it might provide you with the structure you need. Mikey gaped, dumbfounded. Karate. He had anticipated detention, suspension, perhaps even expulsion. Not this opportunity. Sarah's breath caught. You're allowing him. In your class. Her voice was a blend of disbelief and apprehension. Everyone deserves the chance to demonstrate growth, Sarah, Principal Evans replied, maintaining her steady gaze on Mikey. However, Mikey needs to appreciate that this is not a game, but a journey towards personal development. A single misstep, and the offer is withdrawn. Mikey's throat constricted. I understand, Principal Evans. I'll do it. Whatever it takes. That afternoon, he stood self-consciously in the dojo, the air thick with the mingled smells of exertion and focused energy. The polished wood floor shimmered under the bright lights. Other students stretched, their movements a testament to grace and control. Principal Evans, immaculate in her white gi, gestured him forward. First lesson, Mikey, she declared, her voice a balanced mix of firmness and compassion. Respect. We demonstrate respect for ourselves, for our fellow students, and for our instructors. She pivoted to face the dojo, her spine straight, her hands clasped before her. Bo, she commanded. Mikey hesitated, then clumsily copied her action, bending at the waist. He felt a foreign sensation, a flicker of humility he hadn't known in years. Principal Evans straightened, her eyes meeting his. He detected not anger or disappointment, but something akin to optimism. Together, they bowed, an unspoken covenant filling the space between them. The promise of a fresh start,